Wisconsin's been working under a negative budget for the last 10 years. And if you take a look over here, we have what's called a structural deficit. In a nutshell, what we're doing is we're spending more money than we're taking in. We found ourselves in a recession. We continued to spend, but we funded that when we took the tobacco settlement money. Now, everyone in Wisconsin understands that if you find a $5 bill on the stoop, you can take your wife out to eat, but you can't add channels to your cable because the expenditure will reoccur, but the $5 was a one-time windfall. The present day problem is that when we start the next budget, whether it's Governor Walker, Governor Newman, or Governor Barrett, he's going to inherit the following: a 1.23 right here, $1,232 million structural deficit. Yeah. The transportation fund is going to be left alone. We aren't dipping in for the first time in 10 years. Where you go buy gas, that gasoline money, that tax receipt will be used to fix the potholes. You know, there's nothing more disgusting than driving back. I was in the South this weekend, and every state I was in, their medians along the Interstate 39 down to Bloomington and over to Champaign where the university is, are all mowed. You come to Wisconsin, we look like a third world country. And you mean to tell me that the highway fund with over $1,285 million and they couldn't mow the intersections between our main highways? It's a disgrace. Wisconsin looks like it needs a haircut. And what happened? What happened? It's because they raided the highway fund and moved it over to the general fund. You're out of order.
Ellis.
Sit down, you're not recognized. The question before the House is non-debatable. Call the roll.
Senator Carpenter.
Yeah, being in the minority sucks. and you know, I don't know, maybe someday down the road, someday, we will take Republican and Democrat, and maybe we'll just, that'll go into the sunset and we'll all run as independents. And then we can put people first and the party second. Maybe someday we will get a Supreme Court that respects, with the same degree they believe collectivism is important, that the individual is really important, and we'll put people back into the funding of elections rather than special interest groups. That is critical to changing the landscape of Wisconsin. The partisanship which exists today is extremely toxic. But being in the majority gives you an opportunity to express the hopes and desires of half of the people of the state. And being in the minority, the other half gets lost. And so that's just the way the system works. But it doesn't mean we have to roll over and die for it. We need to reform the system so that all the people can be accounted for. If she has a good idea, and just because she happens to be a Democrat, it shouldn't get tabled. And if I have a good idea, and just because I'm a Republican, that idea should supersede the partisanship which exists today in this state. The elderly women in nursing homes to the tune of $87 million by making private pay people pay more. You also forgot about the $104 million, Mr. President. The $104 million you saddled working women and others with that 75 cents that you tacked out of the back of their phone bill. You also had a war on women who pay the electric bills. $38.7 million was tacked onto the back of their electric bills. Not only that, you jacked up women's insurance through the ceiling because many people were more interested in the trial lawyers and how they could get more money out of an accident. And when you dumped almost $1 billion of higher property taxes on the backs of the property taxpayer because you cut $690 million of GPR. You cut it and you replaced it with property tax dollars. You had an economic assault on women. And prior to 2009, the bill you're talking about, when you ran this place, for almost 20 years you never bothered with. I don't think you want to go back to '09, but I guarantee you, Mr. President, we should remind the working women of this state about the economic assault on their integrity, not only their integrity, but on their pocketbooks. Because boy, did they take a bath thanks to the '09-11 budget. And we're still paying for it to this day. So no, I don't think we want to go back to '09-11. We don't want to balloon government bigger. We want to make it smaller. And that way, those women who you hurt in that budget will be able to keep more of their money. And when we pass this tax bill, $400 million, that's just a drop in the bucket based on what you took from them in '09-11. I think that's a good step in the right direction. Going back to '09-11, I think this is amazing that someone would ask us to return to '09-11 and $3 billion in debt and $5 billion in higher taxes. I don't know. I didn't think about this till I heard my friend get up and talk. But I think I'll go into my office when I'm done and write this down so I don't forget this. Because I got this notion that I'm going to hear, and everyone's going to hear, about the war on women. There was a war on women. Howitzers and big guns blasting their economic dependency into the dark ages. There's a sense of sadness because it means that, we all know we're getting older. And I always enjoyed what I did. So that's there, but there's also a little bit of, reality that, you don't know how many years you got left, maybe 20 if God is good to you. We're also the product of a different moral code of decency. We grew up respecting certain elements of our society that we interact with. The idea that someone would walk up to you and pass themselves off as a constituent back in 1985 or 1995 and be rigged with all this high-tech equipment and get you to say something that's going to get you in trouble later never existed back then. We wouldn't have even thought of that happening. It's true in politics too. 40 years, 28 years old to 73, this has been my life. And it's hard to give it up even when you're in a playing field you don't recognize anymore. So I'm happy with where I am and where I've been and where I'm going.